Allow me to say this. If you're going to give statistics just to show comparison of cost of living,
yes,
and your point is that everything has gone up from last year to this year,
yes,
then pose all the facts. Because what you read for us was just supporting evidence to your narrative. But if I tell you that in September last year, unga was between 230, a 2 kg pack, and 250. And right now, today, at the shelf is between 180 and 190.
193 to be specific.
It does, even if it's 195, Ayub, we are not at 200.
And Senator, I mentioned if you have been keenly listening, just to pause you, if you have been keenly listening, itemized number second last 2 kg of wheat flour.
My point is,
I did mention that.
My point is,
if you are keen listener,
so that we are telling Kenyans the truth.
All right.
That is a clear example of whatever strategies this government has put in place within just 6 months, it has translated to something. And you know, that is what, and I agree with Arnold, that is what we are not telling people. The same thing with gas. People are saying cooking gas. What are your stats for cooking gas?
That is 13 kg cooking gas, 3,100 shillings.
So if I tell you Taifa gas at 13 kgs is 1,300.
Where did you buy that? When did you last buy?
That's what now the narrative is. Where is Taifa gas? So for us as government, where we have failed is, why are we not telling people where this 1,350 gas is? Because it's the same way when you go to the supermarket, you will get, you'll get milk, right? You'll get all types of milk, including Brookside. So if you keep looking at Brookside prices and coming to studio to tell us Brookside is this much, it's biased, because not everyone takes Brookside. That's not where, when you're doing the statistics and the basis of the data, you're not going to pick the highest end to go and say, by the way, prices are just skyrocketing. So, and the same with banking, by the way. If right now you go to certain banks, their banking services have gone up, because those are banks that actually used to enjoy the monopoly of services from government. And now that they don't have those contracts from government, they have to find a way to stay afloat. So they are pushing their expenses on you. The same thing, by the way, the only thing that we can actually have a conversation here that needs to be done, and that one I honestly 100% agree with, is the cost of electricity. I mean, this other cost, what I'm trying to say is the measures that have been put in place now, including removing the subsidies on consumption and putting them on production. We are going to have our first harvest in June. So until June, you cannot comment on agricultural produce and the cost of those kind of things, because the first harvest, based on the measures that we have put, is going to be in June. But let me tell you what we need to talk about when it comes to, including even in this bipartisan talks, and I'm trying to push for it, is electricity. The cost of electricity and why we have such high electricity. And let me tell you something. We are not talking of it, but recently I was sitting with CEO of Ethiopian the equivalent of KPLC, yeah? And he said, we are actually making sure and trying not to sign any IPPs, because IPPs just come with expenses. And it's just a way of increasing the cost of electricity. Okay. And then I asked them, I said, how many IPPs do you have? They said, we are trying to sign one, but we are trying to see how we can reduce. In Kenya, we have 27. Today, my electricity bill has shot up 3 times higher. And in fact, I've actually called the people involved. I'm like, what is going on? But the truth of the matter is that we have IPPs who are cartels, and until now that one bring to the table we discuss, because even me who is in government, I strongly, highly believe that these IPPs are actually cartels, agents who are actually, some are being paid to produce nothing and give nothing. Okay, but Senator, you know? Then, so let's have those conversations. Okay, thank you. Admittedly, that is a very point, and you sit in the Senate, and I'm not sure whether you have, or you can relay this information to the Energy Committee Chairperson, the Senator Nyeri County. We have, yes. And I can tell you, it's good because you don't need to go to... Now, for purposes of the electorate, because we are failing on that, please allow me. Okay. For purposes and because of time... Yeah, and because of time... You raised a very important point, so allow me to pose this question as you respond, and then we proceed. Okay. Because power is very important for production purposes. Okay. You don't need the equivalent of KPLC in Ethiopia. There's a report by John Ngumi, the professor, handed over to President Uhuru Kenyatta before he left power. In it, he said,
There's secrecy, I quote him, around power purchase agreement. The investor protection focus appears predominant over the consumer interests of the Kenyan people. He pointed a finger of blame at the Petroleum Regulatory Authority for restraining itself from processing Kenya's power tariffs review applications. He further on said, as of June 2018, the company's assets of 54 billion were less than of liability, 106 billion, resulting in negative working capital of 51 billion Kenya shillings. You said you were in government then. What will you do about this? There's a report already. You don't need to hear from the KPLC equivalent of Kenya to Ethiopia because you have a report here. How can you act on this?
First of all, if we are going to go on the basis of there's a report, there's also a report on the Ndungu Land Commission.
Yes.
Yeah. There's a report on the TGRC. There's a report. There's so many reports.
I did not quote those ones. So, I did quote this.
Yeah, I'm just saying that cannot be a point of reference because reports that are done can be done in different circumstances.
It was a report on power.
Yeah,
I cited power.
Yeah.
So we are this is the narrow line.
Allow me to execute.
Okay, Senator, I will give you all the time.
Okay.
Because that is the what the profession demands.
I'm trying to say, when you say we don't need the equivalent of Ethiopian KPLC, I am actually trying to say you're wrong because one of the things is that they are actually a stakeholder. We actually import power from them. And what we needed to understand for most people, you know, we talk about kuna kizungu nyingi, and you know now IPP, someone asks what the hell is that, whatever. The bottom line is this: we have what you call agents in the form of IPPs, and in Kenya we have 27 of them. We have 27 contracts, and what I needed to understand is if this is the norm, why are other countries not having 27 or 5 or whatever? That was the bottom. That is the introduction of the conversation. Only to find out, and that report, by the way, that you're referencing, actually sheds light that those IPPs are cartels. Do you understand? So at the bottom line, what I'm trying to say is, based on that report, which also has been tabled to the Energy Committee in the Senate, and based on the conversations that we've had around the benchmarking of the different organizations, our neighbors, I will tell you for a fact that the cartels that we need to remove out of this equation are the IPPs. Unfortunately, you remember Kenya Kwanza talked about state capture. We were not talking about it in oblivion. Okay. We were talking about it in the understanding that it is the different industries in this country that have actually been captured. Electricity is one of them. Of the 27 IPPs, I can tell you straight up, 8 of them belong to an individual. An individual who is very powerful in this country. And some of those IPPs, 3 to 4, actually do not produce any power. They do not, so they're being paid. The agreements that we have signed as a country is that we pay whether we consume or we don't consume. Okay. So there are even plants that are not operational, but because we have those contracts, when we are struggling to meet our operations, when you're struggling to meet our expenses, these things you see we're talking about that we are living beyond our means, part of the people who are being paid for nothing are the IPPs. And for me, I'm saying, whether or not government is supporting me or not supporting me, because at one point, these are things that affect Kenyans directly. I'm telling you that the one thing we need to have a conversation of continuously until we dissolve, and in Parliament and outside of Parliament, until we dissolve and bring to an end those contracts, which are actually, it's just impunity. How do we take away IPPs? Or when are we going to take away IPPs? Even if we actually need to get legal minds, sit them on and tell them, exit us from these contracts, and highlight the owners of those IPPs because wametufunga as a country.
Senator,
you understand?
It is